Hello and welcome to today's webinar session for the Level 5 qualification. Today we'll be discussing leaderful and reflective practice. My name's Gemma Carr.
And I'm Laura Sykes. So today some of the learning aims we're going to look at relate to theoretical perspectives and approaches relating to leadership and reflective practice, how you will support others through that leaderful practice within your role, including things like deploying staff effectively to suit and enhance the learning environment, but also thinking about the children's and your staff's safety and well-being. To learn how to act upon your own responsibilities in relation to health and safety, as well as within your role, you need to be able to mentor, coach, train, guide and motivate the team as well. And then we will finish off today by talking about the importance of an enabling environment and just kind of how this looks within practice.
So this is sort of a classic reflective cycle that's often looked at. It would have been looked at in level 3 qualification as well, probably. If you've transitioned from the level 3 into the level 5, this would have been discussed then. So we've got the Gibbs reflective cycle. So it's that process round and round and round and round. So we sort of start with the description, feelings, evaluation, analysis, conclusion, and an action plan. So some of the questions that I kind of want to pose for us to discuss and for you within your setting to sort of think about. Predominantly, we look at this and we go, as a reflective cycle, is this too much? Like, to look at that and go, how I reflect on my day and how I reflect on my activities with children, how I reflect with what I do, that's a lot.
Yeah, I agree. I think there's a lot of steps there that I definitely haven't done when I've reflected.
Yeah, and I think that's something to kind of be aware of. Like, this is something that is discussed in level 3, as I said, and then we sort of bring it through into this. But actually, is this reflective cycle maybe relevant to early years? Is this relevant to that quick pace, all day, every day, doing things, bits and bobs that we are doing, basically, isn't it?
Absolutely.
And I kind of want to kind of think about that and sort of. But at the same time, there may be settings that this is what they do, or potentially this is something that maybe even larger settings do, that this is fed down from top management down and brought down to you, and you're trying to bring this into your setting as well, kind of thing. So kind of, is it relevant today, and kind of what our reflection styles are. So how would you do your reflection normally, Laura?
So I would probably do something a bit shorter and kind of reflect on, right, okay, what happened, what was the kind of outcome. So I guess maybe that reflection, that analysis, and then, right, what am I going to do about it? So almost kind of cutting it down to description, analysis, and action plan, really, kind of what happened. Let's analyse that, and then let's come up with an action plan and make a plan moving forward. But like I said, it doesn't mean there's not a place for this. It might be that sometimes we do need to do this deeper reflection.
And I think that's also it. Some of the shorter ones could well miss sections. So, like, for example, this one, feelings. So what were you thinking and what were you feeling? That doesn't come into that shorter reflecting, or it does, but it kind of gets amalgamated into another section. So are there the shorter cycles that have actually just kind of condensed this into those 3 sections or something like that? So it's kind of, it's a bit bizarre, isn't it? Like reflecting on reflecting style. But that's kind of what we need to kind of think about. And it's, how would you kind of promote this, also thinking as a larger cycle? Is this a way that you feel the easiest way to promote with your staff, as well as it's how are you going to promote that within your staff?
Absolutely. And it might differ depending on the situation. Like if you're speaking with a practitioner about an activity, then feelings might not come into it. But if you're talking to a colleague about maybe their interactions with another colleague, or maybe a bit of conflict, then those feelings would absolutely be a vital part of that reflection. So I think you're right. It depends what the situation is, and of course, as Gemma said, what you want to promote within your team in terms of reflective practice.
And again, that parent partnership, again, after a parents meeting, even if it's just a discussion about a SEND child, something like that with a parent, the way you reflect on that is going to be very different, like you say, to the outcome of an activity with a group of children. So I think it's important to understand that there is a deeper cycle like this for those situations, but there are also other reflective cycles that we can look at.
So yes, there's this kind of shorter cycle. As you see, it's only got those 3 steps in it. So that kind of experience, the reflection, and then the actions, almost that action plan, which is a shorter kind of version of that reflective cycle that we were looking at. So, is this an everyday way to reflect? Is this something that you could use every single day, and then use the more complex reflection cycle for individual situations? Does this relate to your role? How would you use this cycle? Something to think about, within your role and within your setting, and how you would promote that again within your team.
Again, I think this is more logical, more realistic, more natural for a nursery, for that nursery environment, for that quick, right, come on, the next one. I think also this is potentially something that you would do all day, every day, repeating that over and over and over after your activities, after your situations, after talking to your staff about things, whatever. Whereas the previous one, Gibbs cycle, is kind of almost more, I see it as that half an hour drive home commute reflection was often my way of kind of reflecting on the day, on situations, to kind of as a general big overview, the big day overview. Whereas this one here, the ERA cycle, is that quick everyday, all day every day thing that we're doing. And I think this is also a much simpler way to talk to your staff and kind of encouraging them how to do it. Because if you were to give them that Gibbs cycle, they're just going to look at it and go, huh? That's madness. I can't do that every day. We're trying to reduce paperwork. We're trying to do this. But actually, this can be a quick thing for all staff to do, no matter what level they're sat at either, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's that time element. I think quite often in early years we're always talking about that time element, and this shorter version you can do in the moment. It doesn't take long to do. You could do it individually with your colleagues. You're able to do that in that moment, and it will hopefully have that impact, because the action might be that you're going to change something or do something straight away. Whereas I think you're right, that kind of the Gibbs kind of cycle on reflection is something that you need more time to think about and go through it. So it might be that you've used this throughout the day, and then you use that at the end of the day or end of the week or end of the term, depending on what you want to do. But I think you're right. I think maybe kind of supporting the team with the shorter way to reflect first, getting everybody to do that, and then maybe moving on to the other kind of cycles at a later date.
As you sort of saying about that paperwork, it would almost makes me think sort of that Gibbs reflective cycle could be something that could even come into like appraisal time.
Yes,
those
absolutely.
one-to-one sessions with your staff. Again, whereas the ERA cycle would be a little bit shorter, and that Gibbs can be something a bit more rounded, bringing in those targets from it and kind of being a bit more on that managerial level kind of thing as well.
Absolutely. So that takes us quite nicely onto leadership. So within your role, there's lots of things you've got to think about when it comes to leadership. So the first thing that we're going to talk about is team deployment. So we need to make sure we're effectively deploying our team across the room, across the setting, within our role, and just make sure that we are thinking about where the team are, not just in terms of ratios, but also individual children, groups of children, to just make sure that the environment is safe that we're kind of creating there, but also to make sure that we're meeting kind of legal requirements as well.
I think it's, for me, I think of staff deployment as, you've got your different areas of the room, and you're saying to staff, right, we need one member of staff in each area or each end of the room, depending on how many staff you've got or how big the room is or whatever. But essentially it's kind of that, where are staff based for that day, and how do you manage that? Because it's tricky.
Absolutely.
It's tricky, if you've got a member of staff who's meant to be in the book corner for the day, or that end of the room for the day, well, they've got to go off and change a nappy. If you've got behavioural concerns within the room, and you've got no one down the end of that room, You need to think about that. How are you doing that? Or again, thinking on that behaviour level, is it a case that you need a one-to-one with a certain child? So that would take a member of staff away if you don't have that extra funding to be able to prioritise just one person for that child. So that's what that kind of means to me. And I think it's really important, like, to kind of, for you as manager, to kind of be confident to have those conversations and explain to your staff, everybody in the room, the importance of that and why that needs to be there for health and safety.
Absolutely. And I remember having a similar discussion with one of my teams about that deployment and moving with the children. So, if you're meant to be down that end of the room because of the safety element, we can't see from the other side of the room, you can't see round to the other side because the room was kind of like L-shaped. But if there's no children there, move with the children, both inside and outside. But of course, we need to then work together that if children then do go down there, that someone goes down there. If it's not you, it's another member of staff. So, I had that conversation a few times as a manager with the team about moving with the children, and just because maybe you've been asked, you're in the garden today or you're in this area, it doesn't mean you stay there even though there's not children around you.
I just laugh because I've had a situation before where that's been the case, and I've kind of said, right, this person, can you be down at this end? And they've gone, yeah, that's fine, everything's great. And then another member of staff, so this was in a toddler room, another member of staff's got tough tray out and they've been playing with tough tray. Of course, they've all swamped this tough tray with one member of staff, and must be about probably 8 to 10 children around this tough tray, and you could see her just freaking out with all of these children there. And the other member of staff was in their area just sitting there, just reading one of the children's books. There's no children around her. And you kind of go, but that's it. That's building that understanding in your staff. Why do we need to do that? You've got another member of staff who's having a freak out at the end. You need to go and support them, move with them, exactly like you say.
Yeah, definitely.
And like we say, it's kind of important sort of that child's safety and also the member of staff's safety. Again, if something were to happen to one of those children, she can't get to them. If they were to slip in the tough tray, bump their chin, whatever, they can't get to that. So then that's sort of in their area. So it's kind of that responsibility of that member of staff who's near them, So I think that's also kind of comes into it, that building the confidence in your staff to say, sorry, if you're not doing anything, do you mind just coming to help me a minute? Like, they've just all come over here, could you just give me a hand? Saying to your staff, it's okay to say that. It's okay to talk to your team like that as well, isn't it?
Yeah, and it's almost kind of using what we use with children when it comes to that conflict resolution and how to talk to their friends. Very similar with the team, and like say, giving them that confidence that it is okay to ask those questions. If team aren't using their initiative and following that kind of deployment and supporting the children, then you absolutely need that. And you're absolutely right. Yeah, it links massively to children's safety and that team members kind of safety as well.
Definitely. I think it comes into kind of children's well-being and teams' well-being as well. Again, each other are going to look after you. Your team are going to be there to support you. But also for the children's well-being, I know there's going to be someone there, again, should there be behavioural concerns. You see children who are scared of other children if they're a biter or they're hit or something like that. They can kind of be a bit worried to go to that area that the unkind child is in. So having a member of staff there as well kind of gives that child the confidence to go into that area, whether that's construction area or whatever it is. It gives the child that confidence and that knowledge that they are going to be safe.
Yeah.
And again, just a general safe environment, isn't it?
Absolutely. And that links quite nicely onto your role as a leader in being a mentor, training the team, coaching them, guiding them, role modelling, motivating them within that team to support the safety, support the well-being, to make sure that they're moving around with the children, and make sure that they're creating that environment.
Yeah, definitely. I think, and that's also again sort of leading into is the role of the key person, and your role as management with all of that mentoring training is to support that key person whether that's observation assessment planning, or even if it's just in their own personal professional development. Okay, look, let's again, it brings us back to the reflective cycle here, doesn't it? You can say to that member of staff, okay, so you see you were down in the book corner, all the other children have gone up to the other room. How do you think you could change that? Let's reflect on that together. You're bringing in the reflective cycle, as well as supporting them, coaching them, teaching them their role as a key person, as a member of staff in the setting, and your expectations for everybody.
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, you're absolutely right. It definitely links there. That leadership and reflection, goes hand in hand. And it is part of your role to support the team with that reflection as well. Very similar with embedding policies and procedures. So, of course, being within that leadership role, you've got to make sure those policies and procedures are being followed. There's a lot of legal requirements there that we've already covered. And so you need to make sure that, risk assessments that are being done, that the team are following those procedures. So again, we're back to that training, that guiding and supporting the team to ensure that they are following those health and safety, safeguarding, all of those policies and procedures within the setting.
And equality, diversity and inclusion, again, treating all of your staff the same. Yes, you might have a member of staff who's been in there for 10 years and they're great. They do everything without even thinking about it. Staff deployment's there, health and safety's there, it's all there. But then you might have a member of staff who's been there a year and still is struggling a little bit, or just can't get their head around something, or you're sort of thinking, well, actually I'm not quite confident in them in that role yet. So again, treating them all the same and kind of saying, okay guys, let's have a look at this, how can we make this better, how can we work on this? Again, relating into that sort of the pedagogy that you want from your setting as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And you've got to treat people the same. We've got to be aware of equality and diversity, but also sometimes that means doing things differently. Sometimes as a leader, you've got to use a different approach with different people to get the same result, for them to understand deployment, health and safety policies, the settings, pedagogy, and seeing all of that embedded.
And I think that's a big thing, isn't it, as how we are embedding the curriculum, how we are embedding our pedagogy. And I think all of that is changing a lot in settings. And I think it's important to kind of, again, when we talk about curriculum and pedagogy, it could be that member of staff who's been there 10 years that actually needs more support with that, with those changes, opposed to the newer members of staff where that's kind of all they've known. This is our setting, this is what we do, so that they just know that as the get-go. Whereas it could be some of the older staff that actually might struggle with picking up that new pedagogy element, or a new curriculum, even if you're starting a new curriculum instead, even just the new way of doing planning, observation assessment planning, that could change, and all those things. So it's sort of the how you're treating your staff to kind of bring everyone to the same page.
Absolutely. And like I said, it will be different for different people, different colleagues. Like I say, some will struggle with some areas and others with other areas, and as a leader you've got to support them to reflect and to realise what are my areas of development and what do I need to focus on, what is the areas that I need support with, training in, coaching in, like you say, to make sure that everybody is working at that same level and on the same page.
And I think that's how we enable that learning environment for all staff. And I don't think it should be overlooked that all staff should still be learning.
Yes.
Nobody knows it all.
And early years is always changing, as we know, like I say, with the curriculum, with pedagogies, with practice. So yeah, everybody should be learning. Everybody should have those actions, those areas of development to work on, because there is always something new for us to learn about. Even with that learning environment, that's changed massively over the years. What we see as an enabling learning environment.
Massively. So that kind of takes us on to thinking about what is the importance of creating an enabling environment. So for me, often you see the word environment and you think, yeah, inside or outside. But actually there is so much more to what an enabling environment is. What does it include? why we do it, you know, like there's just, it's everything, isn't it? You know, like we've spoken a little bit about the safety element. So alone, you know, is the environment safe? Are the staff safe within the environment? Are the children safe in the environment? Is it age appropriate, the environment? Is it promoting comfort and care for the child? And then you've got all the areas of the EYFS. Is it promoting all of those things, you know? So there's just a lot in it, isn't there?
Absolutely. You know, does it reflect your pedagogy, your curriculum? Does it reflect, like you say, those areas of learning? Is there areas for, you know, that social element? Is there areas for group learning? Is there opportunities for adult-led and child-initiated play? You know, and is that equality and diversity being embedded within that enabling environment?
Yeah.
Is that there?
Yeah, and I think there's sort of that there's kind of the sort of idea that you have to have your spaces. Do we still have spaces, or do we have, like you say, kind of just that embedded throughout in all of the areas? I think it's also important to kind of think about that we as practitioners are part of the environment.
Absolutely.
It's not just that physical side of the environment, it's us, how we're communicating, thinking about that sustained shared thinking, scaffolding. How are we bringing the children into this environment and kind of promoting their learning with ourselves?
Absolutely. And that's something I spoke a lot to my team about when I was managing a setting, is we don't have an enabling environment if we don't have the staff that are supporting that. We can have all the resources, these lovely areas inside and outside, but if the team don't know how to use the environment, like you say, extend on their learning, support them within that environment, we haven't got that enabling environment. So, you know, you're absolutely right that, you know, staff, the team are a big priority within creating that enabling environment.
And there's the argument, of course, like children are embedded, they are learning to play from birth. You know, they know how to play. That isn't something they learn how to do. They're not taught how to play, are they? But we can support them and promote that, bring in interests, or just that scaffolding, asking what they're doing, what would happen if we did this. That's our importance. That's our importance of the role. That's where what we need to be promoting.
Yeah, absolutely. And these environments have changed massively over the years. In early years, you know, we started off with like say very structured areas. We've got a maths area, a writing area, you know, all these different areas, and actually they are more merged when I go into settings now. There are still some settings that run that way, and others that are a lot more holistic, really, kind of naturally embedding those different areas, and a lot more natural. You know, I used to work in settings where there was lots of colour, and slowly that's changed, and we've got more natural resources and neutral colours on the walls as well. So, you know, that enabling environment is changing.
Yeah, and thinking about the areas. I remember working in nurseries, and we used to have, you know, sort of thinking about preschool room, we used to have a specific maths area. How many children would ever go into that? I don't know. But actually, what the children were gaining from the home corner relating to maths or artsy craftsy table, you know, those things, that's where we need to be embedding maths.
Yeah.
And that's the importance of it, isn't it? It's not we have a maths area. Like I say, you could probably count on one hand over 3 years how many children went into that maths area to do maths.
Yeah.
You know, it's not. And I think, again, that's that training staff to be confident to say, bringing in maths into their play, bringing in literacy into their play. We're doing it that way.
Yeah.
So this is just an example of a sort of setting room that I kind of wanted to talk about, really, and kind of between Laura and myself kind of chat about pros, cons. Again, I look at this and go, this is quite a modern school of thought with the wooden chairs, sorry,
Yeah.
tables. There's a lot of light coming in. I like that. I like an outdoors, indoors. It looks like you could kind of have a sliding door, like a French door, and kind of have that open as a bit of a free flow into that area. Does it look fun?
I think it looks a bit busy, and it might be because of the photo, because we've only got that part of the room. There might be a lot of space on the other side. Like you, I like that there's light. I like there's a door straight outside into what looks like a lovely garden space there. But yeah, is there enough room for the children to, like, floor space really, to build these big towers and these construction kind of using their imagination to create, a boat or whatever they wanted to create within the space? Because I know that was always popular with a lot of children, is having that space to be able to do stuff, or do an indoor yoga activity or something like that.
Simply even just walking between those kind of chairs and tables there, like once you've got a child sat at that chair, is there going to be Barneys about who?
Yeah, I can't imagine you're going to fit through. Yeah,
you know, those kind of things. I mean, I think again, it's kind of one of those things which, as an outsider, we haven't seen it in play. We haven't seen it in action. For me, it almost looks, again, neutral, natural, yes. But actually, is it particularly homely? Sofas make it kind of homely, like might be a nice little book corner, cozy corner to sit in. But once you fill that with 30 preschoolers, or standard size preschool, that's going to be very chocker. And actually, does it look I think it looks inviting.
Yeah, I think it looks inviting. You can see like the different resources. Like they've set out some lovely activities. You can see on the table they've got some puzzles and some maths activities. The books are laid out quite nicely on the bookshelf. You can see that the shelves behind, that looks inviting. I think a lot of children would go over to just see what that
and accessible.
Is. Yeah,
completely
it's
accessible.
At their level. Yeah, so it's that age appropriate environment. Like I would probably say we're looking at older twos, maybe younger threes here?
Yeah, I think older toddlers probably, or young preschoolers, depending on how you're split, kind of thing. Yeah,
but like I say, it's all at their height. You can see that in the back there they've got almost like some aprons or something for the artwork or for the role play area. So it's like you say, there's lots of things there to engage the children.
Personally, for me, again, I know we can't see everything, but I think I would prefer to see more of a natural resources available, sorry.
Yeah.
And kind of, there's a little bit of fantastic plastic there, which obviously is okay, but for me personally, I'm a Reggio gal, and I do like to see more natural resources in there. Also, personally, I think that looks a bit astroturfy.
Yes, rather
which
than
again,
that real grass.
I undoubtedly see the benefit of that in nurseries with children running all over it, mud everywhere.
Yeah.
But then at the same time, I'm a believer of natural resources and kind of being able to feel real life grass, those kind of things.
There's a bit of a balance, isn't there? You've got the natural environment is in the walls and stuff are all quite natural and neutral. The furniture again is, but some of the resources are more colourful. Which again, like you say, kind of has its place, but like you say, it's nice to see those open-ended resources.
Completely.
That we've started seeing a lot more in early years settings.
Yeah. It also looks like it could be quite echoey. I know that's silly, but again, that's something, as a practitioner, you get very easily overstimulated. Which if you've got an echoey room, can just be an extra thing on top of that.
Yeah.
And it just, I'm not picking holes in it. I do like the look of this. I'm just bringing in ideas to.
Yeah, but we do have to be aware of sound.
Yeah.
Like that, if you've got 30 children and they're plus all the team, volume is definitely something that we.
Well, exactly. It's that higher thing that it happens, isn't it?
Yeah. So. Yeah, definitely. Okay. So we've got another one to have a look at. Very kind of different, quite contrasting. What's your thoughts when you look at it?
It's all the colours.
It is.
But at the same time, like you look on the tables and there's not a lot on the tables, and again, where this has been picked up, maybe it wasn't pre-set up or whatever. But for me, there's not anything set up on tables, which for me kind of makes me think it's a lot more child-led. Makes me think that that's an open space so the children can go and pick off whatever they want, go and find things that they want to play with. But yes, it's very colourful. There's, from what we can see, there's no windows. So it could be more of like an internally building. So maybe they may not be able to have sort of that free flow so easily. But from what you were saying with the floor space on the other one, there's a lot more floor space on this, isn't there?
Absolutely, yeah, there is more floor space. I'd probably say this is for our older preschoolers, maybe even kind of early school kind of ages, with kind of, you can see that they've got their drawers there with their names on, and, kind of they've got those, what I call school chairs almost. But yeah, I think you're right, it's very colourful, almost the display boards that they've got there almost blend into the walls a little bit. But like I say, very colourful, which can be inviting for some children. Some children do like that colour, and there is always that kind of debate really between colour and neutral. Do we want that within the room or within the resources?
I feel like everything on this has got a purpose. Everything in this, so like you say, with the drawers with their names on, we're promoting independence. We're promoting a lot more child-led, I feel, in this. And actually, I think if I were a parent to bring a child in, this looks more lived in. This looks more of an active environment in that children are doing things, are enjoying it, a kind of, it's can often be seen that way as well for people, I think, as well, isn't it?
Yeah.
It does look like, they've got the weighing scales there, haven't they? So this could, by the looks of it, could be that they've got specific areas still within the environment. Yeah,
you've got the art easel with the different mark making bits. That looks like a bit of a mark making area. But like I said, the tables are quite clear, so they could bring anything they want over to the tables to play with or investigate.
I see this as like a classic school classroom environment. And again, where we're looking natural, neutral, sort of is the modern way of going.
Yeah.
But again, if this is in a school and sort of for the slightly older children or sort of older preschoolers, I think it's completely suitable.
Absolutely. Now, I do think it's different. In early years, we talk a lot about, like I say, the neutral environment, the natural resources, the loose parts play, that curiosity approach. But in schools, there's a little bit of that, but it is a lot more. Like I say, what I see in that picture is what I would expect to kind of see. And like I say, it's set up for what it needs, and they've got that space there as well.
Us giving these two different images is not a way of saying one's right and one's wrong in any way. Like, they have all got the positives and the negatives. Sort of as we've discussed, the one that, sort of you might think would be great, has actually got negatives. And I think that's also kind of, again, thinking about your role is kind of viewing that and that environment of what does work for a preschool but doesn't work for babies. What should we be trying to promote? Is there bright, colourful, plastic environment what your children are getting from it, and it's thinking about, are they being provided for in that environment? Whether that's through natural resources or through sort of less open-ended resources. But are they still developing happily? Are they still comfortable in the environment, and are you still working with them in the right way in that environment?
Yeah, absolutely. And as Gemma said, within that leadership role, we're back to that reflection again, reflecting on that environment. And it's something, like I said, we've picked these pictures just to kind of have a talk about. There are a lot of positives within both of them. And hopefully you'd be able to use a similar kind of technique within the environments within your setting. Look at those environments. Are they enabling? What do they kind of say to you when you walk in? And get the opinions from your colleagues, get them all to reflect, because it might be interesting to see what different perspectives and different ideas they come up with.
Or even asking parents.
Yes, that's a really good point.
Because again, you sort of see the modern neutral, natural, and if your nursery looks like this one here and is quite bright, is that something that parents have gone and walked in and gone, whoa, as they've walked in, sort of in their brain, was that their thought as they walked in? if so, why so? You know,
Mm-hmm.
those kind of things. And kind of, do you feel like, when as an outsider, when you walk in, does it look busy? Because that's the other thing, is you who may have worked there for however many years, you become desensitized to these sorts of things. So again, looking at it with those fresh eyes and seeing, actually, as a new person, what does this look like?
Absolutely. And also, parents might walk in and think, oh, this is lovely and colourful. What a great environment for my child. Might look at a more neutral one and think, oh, that's boring. Yeah, absolutely. So, you know, it is, you know, great to get different people's perspectives. So, yeah, maybe almost reflect on your enabling environments within your setting, both indoors and outdoors, with your colleagues, with the parents, and just see what kind of discussions you have. We've covered the learning aims and objectives within today's webinar. So hopefully you've got a bit of an understanding around leadership and reflective practice, that leaderful practice, deploying of staff, your roles and responsibilities as that lead practitioner in mentoring, coaching, training, guiding and motivating the team, but also how you can support to create that enabling environment for the children within your own setting. And then we've just got a couple of useful resources here for you as well.
So I think we've discussed almost a bit polar opposites with everything we've done. So whether that's the reflective cycle, or whether that's the sort of that enabling environments and looking at those environments together, I kind of want to make clear that these are not the only options. So we have gone 2 different opposing views on each. So actually these resources would be really good for you to have a look at those different other reflective practice theorists as well, kind of see what's in the middle. It might be a combo play that works for you, or it could be that you're kind of looking at different enabling environments. You've only known the neutral, what could the colourful environment bring, or those kind of things. So we as always, we want to promote you kind of doing your own research.